Now it's time for Perspective on the programme. And my guest today is a woman whose book in English, published around a year ago, has been so successful, it's now been translated and is being released now as well here in France. Launched later tonight, in fact, at the Maison de la Poésie here in Paris. Safiya Sinclair's How to Say Babylon, or Dear Babylon here in France, is her story as she tried to break free of her very rigid Rastafarian upbringing. She and her mother were ruled by her father's strict patriarchal views and repressive control, but she broke free to find her own voice as a woman and as a poet, and she joins us here on set. Thanks very much for coming in to talk to us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Tell us about that upbringing in Jamaica. I mean, how hard and strict was it?
It was very strict. For the Rastafari, they have different rules for the men than they are for the women, and for girls. And so there was a control over, how we could dress. We had to keep our arms and our knees covered. Some Rasta girls and women had to cover their hair. We couldn't wear pants, couldn't wear jewelry or makeup. Anything that was seen as an adornment or not humble was not accepted. And so, the restrictions became quite difficult, the older I got, because I began to question some of those rules and why they were different based on my gender.
Yeah, the Rastafarianism, it's sort of against corrupt Western influences, against Babylon, isn't it?
Yes. And so for the Rastafari, Babylon represents anything connected to Western ideology, to colonialism, imperialism, slavery, anything that they see as oppressive to the Rasta brethren or the Rasta family, they call that Babylon.
And did it go as far as being a violent upbringing, would you say?
I would say sometimes things went to the extreme in the ideology, and my father had a lot of fear that Babylon would become a corruptive influence, and I think he became very protective of us, which manifested itself in different ways.
And in modern times, you've been able to make kind of peace with him, haven't you? I mean, was that difficult at the time, or was it something that you felt naturally you wanted to do?
No, I think it was a natural thing that happened, with some time, with some distance, and having the space to kind of decide for myself the kind of woman I wanted to be able to be in control of my own autonomy, to be the author of whatever vision I had for my own future, gave me, I think, the voice I needed to say to him the things that needed to be said, and the things that needed to be written in this book. And I think, then he was in a place to receive them. So I think there was a lot of growth for both of us to get to that place.
You started off talking a little earlier about how, you started to rebel, as it were. How did that manifest itself? How did that begin, and how did it grow?
A lot of it really began with writing and with poetry, because growing up in a household where I was often told, a woman's highest virtue was her silence and her obedience, I didn't often feel like I had a voice. And it was through writing and through poetry that I cultivated that voice and nurtured a self that also came with little seedlings of doubt of, what I was being told, or questions about what was happening in the household. And so, I think it really began with writing and with poetry. And then seeing the roads diverge between me and my brother, where the rules were so different for him than they were for me and my sisters, I just began to question a little bit.
And does it surprise you that you've been able to carry it forward in the way that you have, to the extent now where we're seeing your book being shown on a television channel?
I don't know if surprise is the right word, but I am, really grateful, and it often feels very surreal, because I think of that young girl in Jamaica in that small seaside village in Montego Bay, and she just wanted to be able to make for herself what she would become, and had dreams for writing poems, which is probably the most unlikely thing I could be. And so it is sometimes surreal, but I feel very, very grateful.
And you were helped a lot by your mother, weren't you? I mean, she used to do things to encourage your writing
Yes.
when you were younger, particularly.
Absolutely. You know, I often say I owe so much of this to my mother that I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it weren't for her. She herself had always been a lover of literature, a lover of poems. She kind of got books wherever she could find them. And she shared that love with me and my siblings. And yeah, through her, I discovered how expansive literature and language can be and the power of literature to really change a life.
So if you read the book, what do you think people will get out of it?
Well, I hope, you know, they would come away with a more nuanced understanding of Rastafari history and how it intersects with Jamaican culture. I hope that they would have an idea of Jamaica now that goes beyond the postcard paradise. I would hope that they would see a portrait of a young Rasta girl, of Jamaican womanhood, and something that really complicates the idea of Rastafari, which I think is a very male-centered one, and to give a view of what real ordinary Jamaican lives are like. This is what I would hope. And for anybody who ever grew up in a household or who today feels that their voice is stifled or they're not in control of their own autonomy, if this book reaches even one reader who needs to hear that, that your voice has power and what you have to say is important, then I think I would be glad.
So having that story, writing that story, now publishing that story and having that message out there, if you like, what comes next? How are you going to be able to carry it forward into your future adults?
I've barely finished this one.
Come on, we need a sequel, another sequel. But,
you know, I'm working on a novel about Jamaican history. I mean, told over, 6 centuries of Jamaican history. And I'm also working on a collection of poems that's centered around Rastafari vernacular, the particular way that they speak by disrupting the English language and turning the words on, upside down. For example, my father doesn't say understand, he says overstand. He doesn't say appreciate, he says appreciate love. And this comes from, an anti-colonial root, the desire to disrupt the English language. And in my mind, I'm calling this Rasta poetics because I think there's something so fascinatingly poetic about it. And I'm interested in exploring this through poetry, but also infusing a feminine rebellion inside of the linguistics.
Yeah. Would you call it feminism, your work, your writing?
I would say feminism or, womanism, which is a more, enacted feminist idea. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great to have you with us on the programme. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Safiya Sinclair. The book then, as I said, in English is called How to Say Babylon. In France, now in French as well, called Dear Babylon. So there you go. One to go out and buy, certainly. Thanks very much once again.
Thank you.